So the big question is this. We know spontaneous remissions and so-called miracle cures exist. We also know they aren't so spontaneous after all. I'm living proof of this, having cured my quote-unquote incurable illness. There's something to how this happens. So how do we, as humans with chronic symptoms, tap into this so-called miraculous healing capacity? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Dr. Erin Hayford, and welcome to the Sacred Illness Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, just my standard medical disclaimer. This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The content should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical concerns. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Erin Hayford, and I have Stacey in North Carolina here in the United States with me. She and I were just chatting before I hit record about the kind of series of events that led to where she is today. This is a really beautiful story of ongoing healing and recovery. I'm excited to have a conversation about how it looks and how it feels when we're still in the midst of it, but we've gotten enough of a way along the journey to have more clarity and more insight and more perspective on where we've been and where we're going. Stacey has a long career in healthcare, so lots of different roles she has played. So Stacey knows both sides of that spectrum of working in healthcare as a phlebotomist, as a medical assistant, as a nurse, as an oncology nurse. And then as she started her deeper healing work going into this alternative world with Reiki, etc. So that is also an interesting and important part of the story as well. So welcome, Stacey. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am very excited to have our conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Erin. Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
So where do you want to start us off when you think about your journey? Where does it begin?
I would say probably in 2018, the year I turned 50. That's when everything truly changed for me. I had a bunch of health issues that I completely masked my entire life. Probably from the minute I got out of the womb, I was like, here comes a shit show. But it wasn't until 50 that I started really falling apart with my health, getting diagnosed with multiple autoimmune diseases, not knowing what the hell was happening. And I wasn't being honest with them. I was at home crying my eyeballs out, depressed and not being honest. A couple of them, when I was honest with them, they just ran the labs and it was, what pill can we put you on? Let's find a happy pill. Not many of them did recommend therapy. I don't know how to ask for help. And when I do, it's usually too late. I've always been the strong one ever since I was 9 years old. So I've always fought for myself. No one comes to save me. I can save myself.
That's my idea behind Sacred Illness is we have those stories that we adopt from childhood and we carry them in our bodies until our bodies, listen, you can't do this anymore. And illness is interesting because there's this thing I see in people where either illness is saying you have to stop relying on everyone else and trust yourself. Or it's you have to stop being so hyper independent and let other people help you.
There's
people
a
often fall into one of those. Yeah. And okay, so you're going through this medical sort of maze, not totally getting those things helped and pushing the mental health thing to the side. You get to 50 and shit hits the fan. So tell us what happened at 50.
So at 50, I was at work. I was working a 12-hour shift at a job I hated more than anything. I'm living on fried chicken and sweet tea. And all of a sudden, I started getting debilitating back pain, like literally like someone was stabbing me in my back.
Wow.
At this point, I had no pain tolerance. I did not want to feel pain. I did not want to know pain. I didn't want to look at pain. So I was getting to the point where I was having trouble breathing. But when you dealt with trauma all your life, you know how to play the part. I had to push that shit down. And I was like, I'm okay. So I drove home. And my husband was so mad at me because he's like, you should have called 911. And so I said, it's probably a kidney stone. It's probably just a kidney stone. So I come into the shower, warm shower, hot. All of a sudden I bend down. And when I stand up, I have a protrusion out of my belly that I look like Jabba the Hutt. I start screaming. Husband takes me to the ER, obviously, and I'm there for 5 days. And they basically said there was nothing wrong with me. Go see a shrink.
Wow.
Thinking back now, I have to laugh about it. But anyways, that brought me on a journey of a very intense journey of healing because obviously I could not go back to work at that hospital. God was like, you need to leave immediately or this job is going to kill you.
Yep.
So I had to get short-term disability. And through that period, I was all left brain Western medicine, never really even dipped a toe into a rural pond ever,
Yep.
ever. But doctors, the way they were treating me, I was seeing specialist after specialist. We're talking the best of the best at some of the best hospitals in the world, and they have no answers for me. And I was like, I guess I'm supposed to go home and just die.
Wow.
And then it got to the point where my husband had to rush me back to the hospital 2 weeks later. Oh, talking about this is very emotional because I couldn't recognize my own daughter
Well,
and I couldn't tell the difference between night and day. I had severe cognitive deficit, like severe. I couldn't even pass a cognitive test. I was in the hospital for another 2.5 days and still nothing. So I had no other alternative. I was forced to go down this path. Thank God, because it saved my life looking back. But
it really shows how Western medicine has its place. You being in that world, you know that. It's saved lives. You've seen it do what it needs to do. And maybe where it fails is when they are doing the workup and the answer is not clear. They don't have an algorithm to plug it into. And so because it doesn't plug into okay, it's this, so then you do this, and then you do this, then it becomes, then I guess it's you. I guess you're fine because we don't know what it is. So you're fine. Or go to the shrink because we can't measure it.
oh, 1,000% and 1,000 times worse. Not because I'm a nurse, but I know better. They know better. And I know what happens behind closed doors. What happened to me is such a disgrace. I don't ever want it to happen to another human being. And it should have never happened to me.
Yep.
So if anything, looking at the 8 years of hell that I've just walked through, it needs to be burnt to the ground and rebuilt. What system doesn't, to be honest? But coming from a perspective of, I've lived it, I've worked it, I left it, I hated it, I loved it.
Yep. And this might be a hard question to answer, but just because you have such a unique experience and perspective, being sick, being in the system, being in the alternative world, in your opinion, where are they dropping the ball? Why did they not do due diligence with you? And I know it's different for every case, I'm sure, but if you had to distill it down, how would you say it for yourself in your experience?
They don't listen. They just see what they see in a textbook. Textbooks don't teach.
Yep.
Experience does. They don't listen. Now, understand, I get it because I was on that side as well. You don't have time to listen to your patients. You don't have time to sit and tell stories. But you know what? At least get the common basics down and show some compassion. That is all I needed. But they don't have time. They don't have time to listen. They follow a script, but witnessing it, experiencing it, and living through it like I did, something has to seriously change because I should be dead.
Yeah.
I should be dead 9 times over, and I'm not. I am still here. And looking back, I see what is going so horribly wrong in certain aspects. They just have to show some compassion and just treat people as a human being and not just a number.
Yep. And like you said, you should be dead. And the only reason you're not is because you had to take things into your own hands, right? If you were to have left your life in that system, it would have killed you. And that's what's so harmful. All of trauma is not feeling safe, right? I was recently reminded of Gabor Mate, who says that trauma happens when there is the lack of an empathic witness. And that's the unfortunate reality of the medical model as it stands, is it reinforces all of the trauma we've already come in with. We already are traumatized. And then we go into this system that is not witnessing us. They are not empathically witnessing us. They're not seeing us and they're not listening, which is what being an empathic witness means, right? It's I hear you, I see you, I'm with you. And instead it's let me check off my list. Let me follow my script. If you don't fit into that, good luck, goodbye. And the big, if we could back it up, the big problem with that obviously is in the insurance model and how much time they have and how they have to code it and bill it. And it's wild. Like all of it really takes away any sort of humanness and just makes it so algorithmic. I remember some of my own trauma with the medical system. I got into a pretty serious car accident and was getting an MRI because they didn't know what happened to my neck. And I remember there was glass all through my hair. I was cut up. And the people doing it were just chatting about lunch. They were just talking about what they were going to have for lunch. And they weren't talking to me. They weren't acknowledging me. I just came off of a stretcher, off of the ambulance, and brought into the MRI room. And there was no humanness to it. I was like, I just went through this incredibly traumatic experience and no one's talking to me. They're chit-chatting because it's almost their lunch break. And you get it, like job is a job, but I don't know. There's something about if you're in healthcare, you got to recognize the person in front of you. So anyways, you go through this traumatic experience. You're not being seen. You're not being listened to. You're basically being told it's fine. Obviously, it's not fine. Where do you go from here? Like, how do you then gather yourself up and find your next steps? Because that is such a hard thing to do. It's so hard to find any sort of momentum or hope when that system fails you so hard.
So I'm so sorry to hear about what happened to you. Seriously, I'm giving you the biggest hug because I know it. I've lived it and it happens all the time and I'm sorry. So I do nothing simple. I need the dramatic. So the night of April 24th, I'm coming up to a very impactful anniversary. I had a near-death experience. God knocked me down so drastically that I had to change my ways. I had to change a lot of things. I had to take full accountability of my healing and not blame Billy Bob, Jim, or Joe's. I just had to take accountability. And then that morning I woke up, I instantly went into remission from lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia. But still to this day, 5 years later, the magnitude of that night and the healing that happened to me, I still can't believe. God intervened, wrapped me up in a hug that I can't put into words. So that's what led me down a journey of Reiki, Qigong, breathwork, somatic work.
Wow. It's not the first time I've talked to someone who had that sort of radical remission experience. What did it teach you when you woke up with all of those in remission?
I learned that love heals everything. I learned to love me. I learned to radically accept my trauma. I'm still learning a lot. The biggest thing I learned is heaven is a place on earth, and you just have to be open to look at it that way. God was like, have fun and have joy and find joy in the simple moments. So I was building a Reiki business. I was called Golden Zen Kundalini with my partner, David. We were building a big business and we were doing really good things. I was teaching Zumba at an assisted living down the street. I started going back as a nursing educator. I was getting better. I was taking very positive steps towards getting better. So my husband and I, camping is my happy place. So we were going camping and we just arrived at the property. And I see that there's a petting zoo and we go to check in and I immediately run up the hill because I wanted to pet the animals. So I run up and as soon as I go like this, I hear stop, don't touch. As soon as I touched it, I screamed bloody murder. I knew instantly that something had just radically changed. It was a fence and there was no sign. And so I was okay, but I didn't feel good. The next couple of weeks after the shock, I did have a friend say to me, you need to at least go get an EKG. Because when I came home, I was just tired. I had no energy. I just didn't feel good. And I was tachycardic. I'm like, I've had these symptoms, whatever. It's okay. So I was teaching Zumba and all of a sudden I'm getting short of breath. And I'm like, hold on here. The symptoms started getting worse and new things would pop up. And again, I like masking my symptoms. I've been sick for so long, whatever. I just wasn't putting two and two together. And that led to seeing a specialist every week, no one really being able to help me, trial and error with all these medications. They diagnosed me with POTS, dysautonomia, HSD, hypermobility spectrum disorder, mast cell. That's been my life, honestly, for the last 3.5 years. I'll have a period of time where I'll have maybe a good 2 hours on a day where I can actually focus. It's a lot.
Yes. And it sounds like throughout so far your experiences, there's been this, just this thing that keeps coming back of don't mask, right? Just allow it to be what it is and ask for help, right? Allow yourself to need help, to not want help, but to recognize I need help. I can't do this on my own. There is something wrong, all that kind of thing. And so how has that been for you? Because I know that's like a boot camp of unlearning that childhood, what kept you safe as a kid, right? But now your illness is really, can't be this way anymore. You gotta let this go. How has that been for you to release that story?
I'm honestly just starting to, so I don't know. It's been hard because it 1000% manifests for me into physical symptoms. Just the invalidation, just the have to be strong, just that whole stigma that we grow up with and learning. This is how you're supposed to act and behave. This is how you're supposed to do this. Oh, it's not working anymore. But for me, it led me down a path, more so depression, more so anxiety. And I do blame my doctors more than anything because, again, I think in the beginning, if I would have had more understanding and more compassion and more listening, and maybe my outcome would have been different. I don't know. But for as much as I've been through for someone who should be dead, I am doing amazing. I can't complain. And my faith is that more than anything, my faith is what's getting me through, and just trusting that what is your plan and all.
Yeah. There's a plan, even though if it seems very unclear at this time. Yes. So that obviously is a major shift for you and the cognitive stuff that came from that. And then 2 years later is when the ischemic stroke begins or happened.
So I was out with my friends and we were going to see Christmas lights, which is one of my favorite things to do. I just love Christmas. And we were walking, having a good time. We ate pizza, stayed in England. I had the best time ever. No issues. I get home, my girlfriend drops me off, and I'm happy. I've got the smile on my face, light up the sky. That's how fulfilled I was. So damn happy. All of a sudden, I dropped to the floor on concrete, no less. So I sat there in shock for a little bit. And I look at my hand and I'm like, oh my. Well, I was able to get up. I was able to walk up the stairs. Again, I just felt off. And I knocked the door and my husband's like, because we have a pit bull, so she barks at any sound. Why didn't you knock? And all I can do is hold up my hand and cry. And he's like, oh my God, he's such a good caretaker. He instantly brought me in. What happened? And I'm like, I fell. So I didn't think anything of it. We just cleaned it up. 2 days later, it ended up getting infected. So I called my doctor. We documented everything. Still didn't think anything of it. And it wasn't until a couple of days later, again, I started getting these weird symptoms like shortness of breath. And I was like, what the hell's happening? I started getting worse and worse. Was having issues with walking. I was meditating one morning and I noticed something doesn't feel right. My hand doesn't feel right. Again, specialists and doctors. Let's try another medication. I just had it. So I was getting worse and worse. And then I end up in the hospital. This was in April. Up until this point, the only one who believed that something was seriously wrong with my brain was my chiropractor and my therapist. They're like, this is not normal.
This isn't you.
Stacey, this is not you. You can usually sugarcoat. This is wrong. I couldn't even try and hide it if I could. More so because it was physiological. So I go to the ER. I have 2 anaphylactic reactions. They end up admitting me. Not for my neurological. They admit me for my mast cell disease. They tell me that you're going to see a neurologist in the morning. So I have hope. They do an MRI. They do a CAT scan, everything. I can read my own MRI. I understand what it's saying. Infarct, left ventricular. What? I call my husband, no lie, I had a stroke. What? I had a stroke. It wasn't until my number 3, actual neurologist put me on the protocol, explained everything. And I was like, that's when everything turned around for me.
Good. So it took 3 neurologists to even confirm that you had a stroke, do something about it.
He was the only one to do something about it. My 3rd neurologist truly saved my life because, and even my therapist agrees, it was just the validation. We're not taught to speak for ourselves. We're not taught to advocate. We're not taught to don't believe your doctor. That's the first thing I say to my friends. Don't believe your doctor. And a couple of opinions. How does it feel for you?
That goes to show there's this both and with healing where we do have to heal what's within us so that we can then therefore pursue what we deserve out here. Because if we have that story of I'm wrong, I'm stupid, I'm bad, I'm not enough, and a doctor is like, you're fine, go to a psychiatrist, whatever you're feeling in your body is not real. It's plugging into receptors that already exist for that story. It just reinforces that paradigm. And so we can heal enough, then we can say, that's bullshit. That's clearly wrong. I know my body. I know I don't feel good. And so rather than saying he's right and I'm the one who's unwell, it's saying he's just a human being who went to medical school and got a certain letter after his name. And he's just as flawed as the rest of us. And his opinion may or may not be correct. And there's a million doctors in this world. And I'm going to find the one that aligns with what I know is true in my body. And that's what our healing does for us. Your story shows how for you, having medical knowledge allowed you to have that confidence because you're like, I just from even a medical perspective, know that you're wrong. It doesn't even have to feel wrong in my body. Obviously, it felt wrong in your body. It didn't feel like it aligned with what you were feeling physically. But then you had your medical knowledge on top of it to be like, I can even just read this thing and know that you're not doing due diligence here. I've had that experience too of having medical knowledge and even with family members, hearing them tell them something and me reading what's just in the chart and being like, that is incorrect, or they didn't tell you this, or getting labs back and being told they're fine. And I see something that's obviously not fine and being like, they missed that part. Let's do something about that. We shouldn't have to have that, but we do. That shouldn't be the reality, but it is. And especially for women, we have that extra thing we have to overcome in the system until we find the person who will hear us and see us, until, like you said, the whole system just needs to be rebuilt. And until that happens, messages like this are so important so that we can hear even someone who has in writing proof that they had a stroke and all of the symptoms of a stroke and can say it and advocate for it with the correct medical knowledge and terminology. Even then we can be overwritten. And so it is absolutely not you that is incorrect. If you feel there's something wrong in your body, if you don't feel good, if you're heard, keep searching for the right person to help you, because they are out there. And so for you, there was that story of people aren't listening to me. I have to advocate for myself. And that's the hard thing, is you haven't had any really good, solid examples of why should I rely on other people? Why should I trust? Because this whole journey has been about having to advocate for yourself. So how are you doing with that? How are you sitting with this not being heard by other people, needing other people? It just feels like it's such a mixed
It's
bag
a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's constant ebb and flow. I'm doing better than I have in a long time. A lot of it stems from my abandonment issues from a child, but I love being by myself now. I'm a completely different person than I was before my stroke, like even before the electrocution, before everything. That's why everything's shifted for me. I'm learning radical acceptance. I did 4 months in dialectical behavior therapy to help to manage my emotions better. It's almost like every illness that I've had, everything that I've overcome, I become a different version of Stacey. The stroke was the best thing that could have happened because it forced me to look at my brain health. So every day I focus just on my brain health. And by doing that, I'm healing in ways I never thought possible. Managing my health is priority. Just healing and giving myself the grace to heal and just let God do his magic, because it's been pretty spectacular.
I was thinking about another woman I had on here who went through cancer, and she had something called chemo brain. And she similarly had very little capacity. And she said most of her days as she was going through chemotherapy was just sitting quietly in a chair. And that's where things really changed for her, because she was forced to be quiet. A lot of her coping mechanism was to detach from herself and just be out here and be out in the world. And so her cancer via chemo allowed her to be with herself. And so I think there's something really beautiful, challenging, and heartbreaking, and would not wish it on anyone, but about the opportunity of stillness that illness brings into our lives, because it's saying you matter. Like, you get to be with yourself. You get to take care of yourself. You get to slow down. You get to say no. You get to set boundaries. You get to decide how you want to prioritize yourself. And especially for someone with any trauma, especially abandonment trauma, I feel like there's this feeling of I have to be someone else to make sure people don't leave me. And when we are forced into stillness, it's saying you get to be yourself, and the people who you deserve in your life will not leave no matter what, right? This is a question I like to ask all my guests at the end to recap the journey you have been on, which is, who has your illness invited you to become, and or who are you becoming because of your illness? How would you describe that, or how would you answer that question?
I am becoming the most authentic version of me. And there's no shame. There's no blame. There's no, I wish this never happened to me. Yeah. Where I change our situation in a lot of ways. Yeah. But I've never been so proud to be me. See the girl I was at 19 years old, ready to take on the world, but she went down the path that was never meant to be her path. But now I'm walking down the path that is fully aligned with who God wants me to be.
Yes. Absolutely. We go down a certain path in life because it's what we think we're supposed to do, or what we have to do, or whatever, based on our programming. And life has a way of getting us back on track. And sometimes it's a louder or harsher knock on the door than we initially would ever want it to be. But in retrospect, if we're able to be in relationship with the journey in the way that you are, then you can see it for what it was. This is who I was always supposed to be. And I couldn't, because I just couldn't. We don't know what we don't know. And illness is getting us to be us, authentically us. And it gives us that permission and that space and that ability to see who that person is and always has been. We can find them again. And so you wrote 2 books, right? So tell us about 4 books. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So tell us about the books and then how people can find you and connect with you and kind of follow along and see where life is taking you next.
Sure, I would be honored. So I have my 3 books here. So these are co-author books. This is my first one, and they're all on Amazon. Intuitive Speaking Her Truth, and Becoming the Manifesting Diva was my last one. And then I have 2 soulful poems. They're all on Amazon. I have a poetry book coming out with my partner, David, my old Reiki partner. Soul Spells will be coming out in August this year. That'll be available on all the platforms. So right now I am teaching breathwork classes twice a month. I'm really enjoying that. If you want to send a link, it's for the tmsforacure.org and Breath and Beyond with Stacey. So that's every second and fourth Friday. And the last thing that I just became live on my Substack. So right now I'm just sharing. I'm just being open and honest with my daily recovery and just sharing essays and stories and poetry just because they bring me joy.
Amazing. Love that. Yes. So yes, I will link the website and your Substack and then the book links below. And Stacey, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us. And as I had said at the very beginning, I think it's so powerful to hear someone who's navigating symptoms, active recovery, and your ability to see the forest for the trees and have this perspective and see where you're going is just really so powerful and so beautiful. And I also just really thank you for the honest conversation we had around the medical system, because many of us have had experiences with it. And it's just really helpful to hear from someone who's in the system itself or has been in the system to hear it's not us, right? It's not us failing the system. It's not us being wrong or bad. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Such an honor and a privilege to have you here today.
Thank you for your time. This was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. If you find this information shared here inspirational and educational, please share it with those you think would benefit from this work. To take this work deeper yourself, check out our website, www.aurorasomatic.com, where you can explore our coaching, community, and course options. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel where new content is coming out all the time, intended to inspire, awaken, and help you deepen your relationship with yourself, your life, and your world. We'll see you next time.